This is Jay Michaels, and I'm back in the Passion Pit indoors because we are still in quarantine. But that doesn't stop the creative mind. The creative mind, as I've discovered, has gone farther than one could imagine, even in these very claustrophobic times. I'm here with Kristen Mangione, and she is part of Ripple Effect Artists' dance production called Arise. Now, I'm sure you're all thinking, did he just say dance? Yes, yes, I have talked about innumerable plays that have come to life on Zoom. I have talked about cabaret artists who have turned their living room into a smoky cabaret and sang on Zoom. But what's it like to dance on Zoom? Kristen, thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to tell us about yourself and your work in the dance community.
Well, thank you, Joe, first of all, for having me here. So my work in the dance community, it started certainly like everyone, any dancer before the pandemic, live performance. I danced with several modern dance companies in New York. I am trained in dance. It's from a very young age, modern in particular, ballet background as well, and came to New York City like a lot of young dancers, really looking to make it, whatever that looks like, with one of the major modern dance companies. I was really fortunate to be able to dance with several of them throughout my career. And along the way, the other thing about my background that I think is noteworthy, especially with this project, is I'm also a healing artist. So it started as a better day job. I work with Chinese medicine. I'm a shiatsu practitioner. I've been doing that for 20 years. So as far as being a dance artist, I combine those two passions. I combine awareness of the body from a dance background and awareness of the body from a healing spirit energetic background. And that really informs a lot of now the work that we've done in this project on Zoom with Ripple Effect Artists and all of the work that I do currently.
Wow, that's really great. My ears always prick up when I hear that because my wife does that as well. She's a healer on that level. She's even getting her doctorate currently in terms of Chinese medicine and in terms of acupuncture. So I'm really fascinated these days, and I give you props. We're breaking away from simply take a pill because 4 out of 5 doctors told us to something so much more personal, and I think that's great. I think that's really wonderful. So how did you come to be part of Ripple Effect Artists Arise?
Well, Jessica Jennings from Ripple Effect Artists, she and I have been connected for about 9 years. And we actually met through a self-development program, a year-long course about 9 years ago. And having both that in common, self-awareness, self-development work to enrich oneself and one's life, we also share a common background of both being artists. She originally a modern dancer and classical ballet dancer, myself as well. And then her also being an actor and having a theater company. I also, for a time, I had to pick up modern dance companies. So we have a lot of commonality in terms of our interests and experience. And so we first connected, and we have continued throughout sort of cycles of different periods of time. We've reconnected on artistic projects. She was the impetus for something I ended up doing. We had a conversation and I ended up collaborating with a visual artist a number of years ago. She was ancillary in that. And then this particular project came up. She saw a video I posted about well-being during the pandemic and finding joy in the everyday in the midst of everything everyone is dealing with. And she reached out to me, and we hadn't spoken in probably, it's got to be at least probably 2 years, if not more. And we just had a conversation kind of picking up and catching up. And in that conversation, she said, I have this idea for this this project that would probably now be a video of how does one rekindle the human spirit. And we started creating it in that conversation. It came out of some of her own personal experiences with COVID, as well as some stuff she was dealing with in her own life. And I heard something in it. So I think the nature of how we've related is we've been kind of touch points for each other's artistic exploration throughout different periods of these last 9 years, which has been really beautiful. I've also been to I'm remembering several of the galas for the company. So we've reconnected with that. But yeah, the creative aspect has been our big touch point for us.
That's great. That's really good. Do you find, it's funny you say that about how you haven't spoken in 2 years. I find it's this way with a lot of people, but it's especially with artists. You could not see someone for 10 years, but all of a sudden it's like, hey, how are you? And suddenly you're back in that play, that show, that presentation, as if it was only yesterday.
Yes.
And so you're one of the foundationary elements of this project.
I am. Yeah, it's really amazing how it serendipitously happened that, Jessica she was the genesis. She had the way she describes it to me, she had this longing to put creative voice to this experience. She had basically, the way I'll say it is like a darkness coming back into the light. Both in her own life and then in the collective, that really COVID, that's what it has become for so many people. And so us having this conversation where I just happened to present this idea of it was a meditation, how do you find the joy in your present reality? And so those two things came together, and then literally it just came out of, she said, wouldn't it be amazing if there were a whole series of dancers who got to explore this somehow on their cameras, and then we compiled the footage. One thing led to another. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this in a second. I just want to ask one last thing before we dive into before we arise to arise.
Yes.
Personal philosophy, and I can hear it already in what you're saying. During this time, I've seen the spectrum of people's responses to this. And on one side is the notion of creativity. This is the time to grow. This is the time to find new ways to perform. Others were saying, nope, let's just wait. Let's just wait this out. Zoom is a fad, and that's it. So let's just wait. Where do you stand on that? Like, I think I know the answer, but where do you stand?
Yeah, definitely the former. It's a call for adaptation. I believe that that especially from the perspective of a holistic healing artist, and looking at it from the point of view of an opportunity for self-development in response to adaptation, that anytime that there's a significant challenge or an illness, for example, especially on a personal level, let alone collectively, it's an opportunity to look deeper and to see what changes can come about that will actually transform, as opposed to staying in the old. I see it as metamorphosis. It's really what I see it as.
Metamorphosis.
Yes.
Zoom, is it here to stay?
I think so.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is I have noticed that there are certain things that are missing, human connection, for example. And what has been added is, yes, virtual connection is not the same as in-person connection. However, the facility of virtual connection is exponentially heightened. I'll give you an example. I'm now taking classes regularly with senior level mentor dance teachers in Europe. I would get to see for maybe 4 days a year before. They're literally in my studio across the hallway from where I'm sitting. I take class with them 2 and 3 times a week. I've talked to several other people who are having similar experiences. I don't see that going away because it was an unexpected silver lining.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that early on, I watched a gala at the Metropolitan Opera of some of the famous opera singers of our time. And then I watched Rosie O'Donnell's Broadway, for lack of a better term, telethon. And then I went to Stephen Sondheim's birthday. And in all cases, I came to the same epiphany, if you will. The playing field is leveled. Broadway was once over there. No, not anymore. Now it's right here, right in our screen. The opera was once, okay, you got it. That's a healthy ticket. You got to get dressed up or whatever. No, I sat here and saw some of the greatest in terms of opera and so forth. I think this is going to be addictive. Yes, we need to come back, but we need to come back to life to touch people again. But the like you said, the silver lining, the allure of being able to see some of the greatest people, like you say, you're working with a great name from Europe, and there he is right in your studio.
Absolutely.
It's really brilliant. Okay, let's talk brilliant. Tell me about Arise. Tell me about this project.
Reclaiming a capacity for hope in the midst of adversity, especially personal adversity. And the particular way in which the project represents that is it's literally the process of one's getting out the door, leaving your home and going back out into the world. Whether it's in a day or in a whole chapter of one's life coming out of a dark night of the soul. And in our original conversations about representing that, we settled on a kind of a loose, there's a thread that goes through the whole piece in which that's so beautifully represented. And it's of course, a very universal theme for now, especially with all that we've been dealing with, that everyone has been inside for an extended period of time, and what that does to one in going internal and looking internally. So the work is a direct reflection of that.
So it's somewhat of a parable, firstly, of arising out of our seclusion, and yes. it's also, and I don't think there's one person anywhere who can't say that they haven't gone through this, sort of an arising out of your soul, because we've all had to sit quietly and try to refigure life, and so it's sort of our own little epiphanies.
Exactly.
That's great. That's great.
Yes.
And what do we see for this project? I know it's coming up soon, and I can't wait to see it. What are we going to see? What are we going to see?
So you are going to see, it's a short, I believe it's a little less than 5 minutes, dance film specifically created, for media, obviously. And you will see a compilation of approximately 40 artists from literally everywhere around the globe, from Europe, from the United States, from Canada, scattered far and wide, dancers as well as actors. And you will see it's basically, it's a video collage of each person's journey as well as the collective journey of that reclamation of soul. And there is a loose narrative arc that kind of structures it. So you see each person's journey as one. And you also see the range of each individual's expression of what that journey looks like. So everything from getting out of bed in the morning to getting dressed and seeing the world and getting yourself out the door. And it's all done through, of course, the language of the body, through dance, through the physicality of expression with the actors. So it's a visual portrait of that internal process of metamorphosis.
You shocked me with your first line of this. It sounds amazing. 40 minutes around the world right there is alluring. It is their story of how they arose. So that's really brilliant. In 5 minutes?
In 5 minutes. Yeah. The video editor, Victor Gallo is just, I know Victor as well through actually, no, the three of us, he and Jessica and I met, I think, all around the same time through the self-development work. And Victor's been involved with Ripple Effect Artists for quite a long time, I believe. But he brought his expertise. He's a video editor professionally, of course. And so he, in his work, his genius that he created this mosaic of bringing those 40 artists together. And we, in terms of how Jessica and I structured it, there were very specific structures in which people were asked to create. So they really followed those guidelines. And then Victor came in, and the way he assembled it was really exquisite. So, yeah.
I'm going to agree with you, Victor. I know his name through another project, Ripple Effect. They did an independent film called Here Comes Frida. And I saw it, and it was absolutely marvelous. It's your customary dystopian future piece, and I love that. And I thought the editing on it was absolutely marvelous. I thought, again, it was a short film, and so much was in there. So the moment you said his name, I said, okay, 5 minutes. Now it's okay. Okay, so what's it like to dance for Zoom?
Oh my goodness. I laugh because that's such a great question. It's completely distinct from, as opposed to being on stage in front of an audience, because you don't have that immediate energy of feeding off of the presence of others. However, for me at least, you really connect with being fully present in your own way. Like when you're on stage, there is this experience of you become really what I would say present, that you're aware, you're here, you're fully embodied. That's still there, but there's this proxy thing that happens. I still go very deeply into my body, into my own sense of being aware of how I'm moving. And it's, what it is? It's almost, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing this, you become present for the camera. Because it's like, I know that sounds maybe strange, but there is this acknowledgement that something, if it's not a person, the lens is there to witness you. And that, I think, is what has the transformation of like that you're generating something as a piece of art. That's what pulls for it, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. It's funny that I just spoke with Bill Oberst Jr., who's a genre film actor, and he basically said the same thing. He said that you have to make the camera a person, that you have to make it life. So maybe you don't hear the audience applaud or breathe, but you know that there is someone looking at you, and you have to treat it as a person. Does it do anything? Whenever I'm on stage, I always count the house. No matter how I'm performing, there's always that moment of, oh, good, oh, great, all the rows are there, that's great. And I'll say, oh, look, oh, good, someone's in the balcony, very nice. When you perform on Zoom, do you, and I'm not going to say count the house, you just said you're aware of your body, you're aware of yourself, you become the camera on that level. Are you aware of the screen? Like when one performs, when one acts, if you will, we're almost acting to our other person. So I guess you can be subtle that way. But when do you alter your move in some way so that you feel that you're within proper focus? Do you have to keep that second brain going?
Absolutely. Yeah. That was actually one of the great challenges of this particular project of shooting the footage for Arise, was first setting up those shots, just like any film director does, that you're playing cinematographer before you even hit record to see like, how am I going to be in frame? I can't speak for all of the artists when in the filming, but I had mine, of course, flipped to selfie mode so I could see because I didn't have a camera person to assist me. And then I was definitely aware to some degree, like where my body was, even if I wasn't watching myself as I was filming, of course, but intuitively, I had a sense of like, okay, I think I got it. And I can't speak for how that works. It's just sort of a sensory trust thing that sometimes you feel that on stage too. Sometimes you're like, okay, I really got that moment. I know I just did. I'm just in it. And as a performer and as a healing artist, it's something you learn to trust, that knowing. So it was very present in the filming process as well.
That's great. Do you drive?
Not for a long time, because I live in a community where I'm really fortunate I can walk everywhere, but I have, yes, I used to drive.
It likens me a performer. Someone once gave a lecture about not texting and driving, and it was interesting because they said your entire body is in motion when you drive. Your hands are here, but your legs have a life of their own. Then your eyes have a life of their own. Then even the posture, because this everything about you has its own life of its own. So how can you suddenly add something else to it? So it's really fascinating that you say you almost had to go through the same thing. You almost had to have, I'm a cinematographer looking at myself as a dancer, making sure that I'm possible to the audience, which is the camera. It's really fascinating. People need to respect artists more for doing these things.
It's true. It's very true. I love that you said that, because, sometimes the interesting thing about that occurs for me is like how much it becomes simultaneous and somewhat automatic, but it's a very heightened skill. And I think as performers, sometimes we start to take it for granted because we become practiced at it. But just like anything, I was listening to somebody this morning saying this about certain things. They take so much practice, and from the outside it seems effortless, but from how you got there, it's like, yeah. So respect for sure.
Something simple as cheating front. We understand. We understand cheating front. What were the obstacles? This sounds joyous. This sounds wonderful. Everything sounds enticing. What are you not telling me?
Well, my goodness. There were certainly the nailing down of how we structured this. The structure, first of all, that Jessica and I and there was another artist who's in Italy currently, Nicola, who worked with us, who was very instrumental, especially at the beginning of the project. We talked a lot about the nuts and bolts of how do we put this together. So that was really challenging because it got very granular, which it needed to be. We ended up breaking the whole storyboard, if you will, into approximately 10 or 11 distinct scenes. So that was, that really took something to get really clear about what is this, what is this, what is this, what are these parameters. And then I would say the logistics were challenging. Jessica was extraordinary with this. I mean, her ability to manage all this, I was like, yeah, this is why she has a theater company. The organization of all those people and making sure that everybody got what they needed. And then doing the trainings on Zoom, which they were actually seamless and extraordinary, that everybody got what they needed. And it really took something to get, we did a training session for the dancers, and then we did one for the actors. And Jessica and I talked about in advance how to break down and show them exactly what we were asking of them. So that really took something as well, but once it happened, it worked beautifully. And then I say for myself, the other thing was shooting my own footage.
Yeah.
I was really excited as I put myself in front of the camera, so much so that I like waited until like the last possible time. And what was awesome about that was once I started, I just went for it. You know, I was like this, and I just took a number of hours, and then getting over that, sometimes one's own personal resistance to the creative process. When I really just stepped over the fence, then it was magical. But yeah, so all of
So
those
you had
things
to
were
rev
challenging.
up just to put yourself on film, huh?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. That was, you know, looking back, that was actually the hardest part for me, was getting out of my own way.
Well put. Well put.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing two biggies here. Number one, we're praising Victor, but at the same point, you guys had to storyboard this down to each little second. And that must be so. It's one thing to do it with dialogue. Okay, at the end of this line, but here it's like you had to storyboard down to when the arm goes up, when the head goes
Mm-hmm.
down. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yes.
And then teaching on Zoom, that's interesting. You had to train your performers to work with Zoom?
Well, actually, it was more, so what you said about like the arm goes here and this, Jessica, in those training sessions, she and I talked about the specifics of what the improvisational structures were, and then what the set ends, beginnings and ends of each scene were. And then Jessica talked through all of that, and she demonstrated, and I demonstrated a few pieces of that. So it was that was the training part of like the training around what the material was. And then also as far as improvisational structures, what choices they had, what Jessica wanted as far as a shot, you know, that whole thing in film about like, did we get the shot? we were spelling out like, what do we want in this shot?
Did you need multiple takes or anything? Because obviously you're working remotely, so did you need to reshoot, for lack of a better term?
I don't know that it was so much reshooting. In fact, I know that Victor ended up with way more footage than he could have possibly used. It would have been like a half-hour thing, which was great. But I don't think there was anything, to my knowledge, about reshooting. It was more a choice, more a question of the artful choices. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a task in itself. Okay, which beautiful moment is the one that you want to capture within 5 minutes of this? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last question, the audience is going to sit down and they're going to watch 5 incredible minutes of dance on their screen of artists around the world. What do you want the audience to walk away with when they turn off their camera? What do you want them to think?
There is hope.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, you know, I would love to ask Jessica that question as well, because I'm curious what she would say. But for me, like that's really what it boils down to.
Wow.
In whatever it is, there's always hope.
That's brilliant. That's really brilliant. It's funny. Like I said, I've spoken to hundreds of people since Friday the 13th of March regarding all of this, and people say, well, this is what's going to happen with the world. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. Bottom line, ironically, they all in the end say the same thing. I just hope everything is fine. I know we'll come back. Just what's going to be there. You're right. You're handing us what we've all kind of inherently thought, and that's hope. Just let's keep looking outside until we can get there.
Exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
That's great. Kristen, thank you so much. This has been marvelous. I can't wait to see this now. Oh my God, 5 minutes. What am I going to do with the other 55 minutes that I thought I'd be sitting there? I wish you all the best. I can't wait to see this project. Please keep in touch. Let me know what else is going on with things. And thanks so much for being part of this.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. Thanks again.